And am I going to go to court because a far-left extremist George Soros-funded organisation tells me to? No, I'm not. If I'm summoned by a court with paperwork, yes, I'll attend the court case. But I haven't been. I'm on holiday with my children. I've not run away from any court case. In fact, I look forward to these court proceedings because it's the British judiciary that's on trial, not me. Nearly 30 million people have...
Tommy Robinson, a figure often associated with controversy and polarizing opinions, has recently turned his focus toward the ongoing anti-immigration riots in the UK. With his characteristic blend of fervor and populist rhetoric, Robinson claims to have exposed the truth behind these protests, shedding light on the underlying issues that mainstream media, according to him, has either ignored or intentionally obscured.
Filled protests erupted into violent riots this week.
People are fed up of being told you should be ashamed if you're white and working class.
A right-wing tinderbox of anti-Muslim sentiment ignited by dangerous online misinformation.
There is an attempt to exploit a very tragic situation.
One of those accused of using misinformation to fan the flames of anger, Tommy Robinson, the anti-Islam campaigner and convicted criminal, is one of the UK's most prominent far-right activists. Thomas Daigle has covered Tommy Robinson for years. So what do we know about his involvement?
This narrative is not only emblematic of Robinson's broader political stance, but also offers a window into the complex and often contentious discourse surrounding immigration in the United Kingdom. Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Robinson's rise to prominence has been closely linked to his outspoken views on Islam, immigration, and the political establishment. Over the years, he has built a substantial following, particularly among those who feel alienated by the traditional political class and mainstream media. His latest campaign, centered around the anti-immigration riots, is no exception. Robinson's supporters argue that he is one of the few voices willing to speak out against what they perceive as the unchecked immigration policies that have led to the current unrest. Critics, however, see Robinson's interventions as incendiary and fear-mongering, exacerbating tensions rather than addressing the root causes of the issues at hand. The anti-immigration riots that Robinson has focused on are part of a broader trend of social unrest in the UK.
If I'm summoned by a court with paperwork, yes, I'll attend the court case. But I haven't been. I'm on holiday with my children. I've not run away from any court case. In fact, I look forward to these court proceedings because it's the British judiciary that's on trial, not me. Nearly 30 million people have watched my film, which they tried to ban. 30 million, okay? Only 9 million people elected the government of my country. This film is in the public's interest. I'm happy that the world has seen the truth. The media lie, they deceive, and they fool the public with their narrative. And I've gone and broke their lies and exposed them in a major way. I'm proud of my work as a journalist, and I stand for freedom of the press and freedom of the speech.
Tommy, the media says that you are lying. Is it true that Stephen...
Over the past few years, the country has seen a rise in protests and demonstrations, often centered around issues of immigration, national identity, and economic inequality. These protests have been marked by a deep sense of frustration and anger, particularly among those who feel that their concerns about immigration are not being taken seriously by the government. In many cases, these demonstrations have escalated into violent clashes, drawing significant attention from both the media and political figures. Robinson's narrative suggests that these riots are not simply a reaction to immigration, but are instead a response to a much deeper sense of betrayal by the political establishment.
I'm not a racist, I'm not a fascist. I'm far from it. So if the best argument you've got is to say racist, fascist, rather than deal with the problem or talk about the problem, which is militant Islam, everyone's trying to pretend we're the problem. We're a reaction to actions that are going on in this country.
This was Tommy Robinson, a flag bearer of the far-right movement in the UK and notably missing in action as the country descends into rioting.
Being away from the violent protests has not stopped him from posting the usual provocative content on social media.
What you're witnessing now on the streets is years of resentment built up by you trying to hide the problems. It's not mine. I didn't allow terrorists and jihadists to come in. I haven't filled the local hotels. People in Hull are rioting, yeah?
According to Robinson, the government has not only failed to address the legitimate concerns of the British people, but has actively worked to suppress dissent. He argues that the political class, in collusion with the mainstream media, has attempted to downplay the scale of immigration and its impact on communities across the UK. This, Robinson claims, has led to a situation where ordinary citizens feel they have no choice but to take to the streets to make their voices heard. Central to Robinson's argument is the idea that the government and media have engaged in a campaign of misinformation. He points to what he describes as a deliberate effort to obscure the true scale of immigration, suggesting that official statistics are manipulated to downplay the number of migrants entering the country. Furthermore, Robinson argues that the media has consistently failed to report on the negative impacts of immigration, including the strain on public services, the rise in crime, and the erosion of British cultural values.
You have destroyed a family holiday when I was with my children. I didn't flee the country because of riots. I'd left the country before any riots. You've purposely done it. So sit your wives down and explain to them what you've done. Let me just do a quick video addressing the journalists. The Daily Mail, as I eat my lamb. Beautiful. The Daily Mail, who sent journalists to a hotel where I was with my children, photographed my family and gave away their location. So yesterday, 3 of their addresses, I've got pictures of all of them, okay? And I've contacted them. You need to contact me, editor, because if not, I am going to come, yeah? I don't want to. I've made this clear. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's morally right, and what you've done is totally wrong. You have destroyed a family holiday when I was with my children.
By contrast, he claims that any criticism of immigration is immediately labeled as racist or xenophobic, effectively silencing legitimate debate on the issue. This narrative is bolstered by Robinson's use of social media, where he frequently shares videos and reports that he claims provide evidence of the government's duplicity. These posts often feature footage of riots and protests, accompanied by Robinson's commentary, which frames these events as the inevitable consequence of a government that has lost touch with its people. His followers, many of whom feel similarly disenfranchised, are quick to share and amplify these messages, creating a powerful echo chamber that reinforces Robinson's claims. However, Robinson's interpretation of the anti-immigration riots is not without its critics. Many argue that his focus on immigration is overly simplistic and ignores the broader socio-economic factors that have contributed to the unrest. For instance, the UK has faced significant economic challenges in recent years, including austerity measures, rising inequality, and a housing crisis. These issues have disproportionately affected working-class communities, many of whom feel left behind by the country's economic policies. Critics suggest that the anti-immigration riots are, in part, a manifestation of this broader discontent.
Because it's the British judiciary that's on trial, not me. Nearly 30 million people have watched my film, which they tried to ban. 30 million. Okay, only 9 million people elected the government of my country. This film is in the public's interest. I'm happy that the world has seen the truth. The media lie, they deceive, and they fool the public with their narrative. And I've gone and broke their lies and exposed them in a major way. I'm proud of my work as a journalist, and I stand for freedom of the press and freedom of the speech.
Tommy, the media says that you are lying. Is it true that Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon is your real name and that you're using the pseudonym of Tommy Robinson to hide your identity and a checkered past?
With immigration serving as a convenient scapegoat for deeper systemic problems. Moreover, there is concern that Robinson's rhetoric is contributing to an increasingly polarized and hostile political climate. By framing the riots as a direct response to immigration, Robinson risks inflaming tensions and deepening divisions within society. His critics argue that this kind of rhetoric can lead to a cycle of violence, where protest begets counter-protest, and the potential for dialogue and understanding is lost. This is particularly concerning in a country like the UK, which has a long history of multiculturalism and immigration. There is a fear that Robinson's narrative could undermine the social cohesion that has been built over decades, leading to further fragmentation and discord. Despite these criticisms, Robinson's message continues to resonate with a significant portion of the population. This is particularly true in areas that have experienced high levels of immigration in recent years, where there is often a perception that local services are under strain and that cultural identities are being eroded. For many in these communities, Robinson's willingness to speak out on issues that they feel are being ignored by the mainstream political establishment is a source of comfort and validation.
Tommy Robinson for years. So what do we know about his involvement?
You could say Tommy Robinson has been laying the groundwork, fanning anger, especially towards Muslims and immigrants, for his followers for years now, and all that was needed was a spark, and sadly that came last week with that mass stabbing and the deaths of 3 young children in Southport, England. What did Tommy Robinson say about all this? Unapologetically, in his words, "Don't say I didn't warn you." So in 2018, I looked into what this growing influence means for Robinson and his supporters.
His name rallies those with like-minded views, an army so passionate about his cause.
They see him as a voice for the voiceless, someone who is willing to challenge the status quo and fight for their interests. This dynamic reflects a broader trend in British politics, where there has been a growing disconnect between the political class and certain segments of the population. This disconnect has been exacerbated by the rise of populist figures like Robinson, who are able to tap into the anger and frustration of those who feel marginalized. These figures often use social media to bypass traditional gatekeepers, allowing them to reach large audiences without the need for mainstream media coverage. This has fundamentally changed the way that political discourse is conducted in the UK, with significant implications for the country's future. Robinson's narrative also touches on the broader issue of national identity, which has been a central theme in the debate over immigration in the UK. He argues that the country's identity is being eroded by mass immigration, and that this is leading to a loss of social cohesion. This is a sentiment that has been echoed by other populist figures across Europe.
The media lie, they deceive, and they fool the public with their narrative. And I've gone and broke their lies and exposed them in a major way. I'm proud of my work as a journalist, and I stand for freedom of the press and freedom of the speech.
Tommy, the media says that you are lying. Is it true that Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon is your real name and that you're using the pseudonym of Tommy Robinson to hide your identity and a checkered past?
No, it's not true. My name is actually Stephen Lennon. But yes, I did use the pseudonym. Do you know why I used the pseudonym? Because if you want to speak about Islam, people want to kill you. 6 Muslims are currently in British prisons for 30 years for planning to murder me.
Who have similarly warned of the dangers of multiculturalism and the need to protect national identities. In this context, the anti-immigration riots are seen as a reaction to the perceived threat to British identity, with protesters demanding that the government take action to preserve their way of life. However, this focus on national identity is also controversial. Critics argue that it can lead to exclusionary and xenophobic attitudes, where immigrants are blamed for social and economic problems that have deeper roots. They suggest that this kind of rhetoric can fuel division and hostility, making it more difficult to build a cohesive and inclusive society. Moreover, there is concern that by focusing on immigration as the primary issue, other important factors, such as economic inequality and the impact of globalization, are being overlooked. The question of how to address the anti-immigration riots and the broader issues they represent is a complex one. On one hand, there is a need to acknowledge and address the legitimate concerns of those who feel that their voices are not being heard. This includes not only addressing issues related to immigration, but also tackling the broader socioeconomic challenges that have contributed to the unrest.
Put an end to that kind of terrorism. The new Labour Party government is holding your far-right movement, members of the English Defence League, for bringing UK to a knife's edge, whether it is the Downing Street, Southport or even Sunderland, and for spreading misinformation about the identity of the 17-year-old Southport attacker as an asylum seeker. Are you and the English Defence League stirring violence and spreading misinformation online?
Can I explain to you how absolutely ridiculous this is? There has been no English Defence League for over a decade. There's no group, there's no organisation, but they're blaming the English Defence League.
On the other hand, there is a need to combat the kind of divisive rhetoric that can exacerbate tensions and lead to further violence. One possible approach is to foster greater dialogue and understanding between different communities. This could involve creating spaces where people from different backgrounds can come together to discuss their concerns and find common ground. It could also involve greater efforts to promote social cohesion through initiatives that celebrate the diversity of British society while also addressing the specific challenges faced by different communities. Additionally, there is a need for greater transparency and accountability in the political process to ensure that the concerns of all citizens are taken seriously and that decisions are made in the best interests of the entire country. It is important to challenge the narratives that seek to scapegoat immigrants for the country's problems. This involves not only countering misinformation, but also addressing the underlying issues that make these narratives appealing in the first place. For example, tackling economic inequality and ensuring that all citizens have access to good jobs, housing, and public services could help to reduce the sense of resentment that fuels anti-immigration sentiment. Additionally, there is a need to promote a more nuanced understanding of immigration, one that recognizes both the challenges and the benefits that it brings to the UK. It's crucial to delve deeper into the multifaceted dynamics that have shaped the anti-immigration riots in the UK and the role Tommy Robinson has played in this narrative. His claims, while appealing to a certain segment of the population,
we're told Islam is a religion of peace. It's getting pretty tiring now. So anyone who's educated on Islam, on Muhammad, they know full well it's a violent fascist ideology that promotes war against non-Muslims, that promotes slavery of non-Muslims, and promotes rape of non-Muslims. We're fed up of the lies. Unfortunately, this could have been a mental health incident in Southport, but we don't believe them anymore because of their continued lies. No one believes them anymore.
But Tommy, is the rioting in the UK going to put an end to that kind of terrorism? The new Labour Party government is holding your far-right movement, members of the English Defence League, for bringing UK to a knife's edge, whether it is the Downing Street, Southport or even Sunderland, and for spreading misinformation about the identity of the 17-year-old Southport attacker.
Only scratch the surface of a complex issue that has roots in decades of political, social, and economic developments. As we explore these layers, it becomes clear that the issue is not simply one of immigration, but one that is deeply entwined with the broader fabric of British society. To understand the current anti-immigration sentiment, it's important to examine the historical context of immigration in the UK. The United Kingdom has a long history of immigration, dating back centuries, but the most significant waves began after World War II. In the post-war period, the UK encouraged immigration from its former colonies, particularly from the Caribbean, South Asia, and Africa, to help rebuild the economy. These immigrants played a crucial role in the country's recovery, contributing to the labor force and enriching British culture. However, this influx of immigrants also brought challenges, particularly in areas where they settled in large numbers. The sudden demographic changes led to tensions, as communities struggled to integrate and adapt to the new cultural landscape. This period saw the emergence of anti-immigrant sentiments, often fueled by economic anxieties and fears of cultural displacement. These sentiments have persisted over the decades, resurfacing during times of economic hardship and social change. The 21st century has seen a continuation of these trends, with the UK's membership in the European Union facilitating the free movement of people across borders. This has led to significant immigration from Eastern European countries, particularly after the EU's enlargement in 2004. While many of these immigrants have integrated successfully, contributing to the economy and society,
Islamophobic, there's no such word. You're currently sat in India. Hindus know full well of the persecution from the hands and the hostility of Islam. You know full well of the rape jihad. I think you call it love jihad, but rape jihad. We, in this country, have been blessed with immigrants from certain demographics which have loved and embraced this country. One of those demographics is Indians, Hindus, from India, and Sikhs. So no, I have absolute love for many minority groups that come to this country, and I wish to send them a message that we will stand with you. We will unify every community against the hostility and barbarianism of Islam. I'm not racist. I despise racism. Islam is not a race. Islam is a fascist, violent ideology which masquerades as a religion. And words like Islamophobia.
Their arrival has also reignited debates about immigration, national identity, and the capacity of public services to cope with a growing population. One of the critical factors driving anti-immigration sentiment in the UK is the economic disparity that has become more pronounced in recent decades. The rise of globalization and the neoliberal economic policies adopted by successive governments have led to significant economic growth, but this growth has not been evenly distributed. While some regions and sectors have prospered, others, particularly in the industrial heartlands of the North and the Midlands, have experienced decline. These areas, once thriving centers of manufacturing and industry, have been hit hard by deindustrialization, with many jobs moving overseas or disappearing altogether. The decline of these industries has left a vacuum in many communities, leading to high levels of unemployment, poverty, and social deprivation. In these areas, the arrival of immigrants is often seen as a threat, with concerns that they are competing for scarce jobs, housing, and public services. This perception is further exacerbated by the fact that many of the jobs available to immigrants are in low-wage sectors such as agriculture, hospitality, and care work. These jobs are often poorly paid and insecure, and while they are essential to the economy, they do little to alleviate the economic hardships faced by many native-born workers. As a result, there is a sense of resentment and frustration among those who feel that they have been left behind by the economic changes of the past few decades.
They get persecuted, they get raped, they get butchered, they get murdered, and they're driven from their own lands. So all the Islamic nations that once were Christian, once were Hindu, that have been absolutely obliterated with no human rights, no support, and no protection for minority rights. That's the reality when Islam becomes dominant. I want to do everything I can in my power, as humanly possible, to stop the Islamic takeover of my nation. And being a coward and being afraid of silly little words like racist or Islamophobic is not going to stop us.
By that logic, that makes you a minority in your own country. But having said that, you lost the libel case brought by Jamal Hijazi, a Syrian schoolboy. The judge said that you made Hijazi out to be a violent aggressor in the playground incident when he was in fact the victim.
Tommy Robinson's rhetoric taps into these economic anxieties, framing immigration as a zero-sum game where the gains of immigrants come at the expense of native-born Britons. This narrative, while simplistic, resonates with those who feel that they have been forgotten by the political establishment and are struggling to make ends meet. By focusing on immigration, Robinson is able to channel these economic grievances into a broader critique of the government and the elites, whom he accuses of prioritizing the interests of immigrants over those of ordinary British citizens. Another crucial aspect of the anti-immigration riots and the broader debate is the role of the media in shaping public perceptions of immigration. The media plays a powerful role in constructing narratives and framing issues in ways that can influence public opinion. In the case of immigration, certain sections of the British media have been accused of sensationalizing the issue, focusing disproportionately on negative stories and reinforcing stereotypes. Tabloid newspapers, in particular, have a long history of running inflammatory headlines and stories about immigration, often portraying immigrants as a threat to British society. These stories typically focus on issues such as crime, welfare dependency, and the strain on public services, creating a narrative in which immigrants are seen as a burden or a danger. This kind of coverage can have a profound impact on public attitudes, fostering fear and hostility towards immigrants. Tommy Robinson has effectively used this media landscape to his advantage.
The court of public opinion, I've already won. If the judiciary wish to send me to jail, which I believe they do, they want to lock me up. Once again, more people will watch the documentary, more people watch the film. I will be remembered as the journalist who absolutely destroyed the credibility of the British judiciary.
So, Tommy, are you saying that is the reason why your documentary Silenced has been banned? Why did you screen the documentary against the High Court orders at the Trafalgar Square on 27th July when it was banned?
I'm a journalist. I believe in freedom of the press and freedom of speech. I don't believe the public should be lied to or deceived about stories. Although I face 2 years in prison for that, I stand on my principles.
By presenting himself as a truth teller who is willing to say what the mainstream media won't, he taps into the distrust that many people feel towards the media. Robinson's social media platforms serve as an alternative source of information, where he shares videos and articles that align with his views on immigration. These platforms allow him to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and reach a large audience directly. Robinson's use of social media is particularly significant because it allows him to create and disseminate his own narrative about the anti-immigration riots. By selectively highlighting certain events and framing them in a particular way, he is able to construct a story that supports his broader political agenda. This is a powerful tool, especially in an age where many people are turning away from traditional media sources and seeking out alternative voices online. The UK's decision to leave the European Union, commonly known as Brexit, has also had a profound impact on the debate over immigration. The 2016 Brexit referendum was, in many ways, a watershed moment in British politics, bringing to the forefront issues of national sovereignty, identity, and immigration. For many Leave voters, concerns about immigration were a key factor in their decision, with the free movement of people within the EU seen as a challenge to Britain's control over its borders. Brexit has since become a defining issue for the country, with profound implications for its political landscape. The referendum exposed deep divisions within British society, not just over Europe, but also over issues of identity, immigration, and the direction of the country. These divisions have continued to shape the political debate in the years since the referendum, contributing to the rise of populist figures like Tommy Robinson. Robinson has positioned himself as a vocal supporter of Brexit, framing it as a victory for the will of the people against the elites who, in his view, have undermined British sovereignty and allowed mass immigration to continue unchecked. In the years following the referendum, Robinson has used Brexit as a platform to further his anti-immigration message, arguing that leaving the EU is the first step towards regaining control over Britain's borders and reducing immigration. However, Brexit has also created uncertainty and division, particularly in communities that are heavily dependent on EU immigrants. Many sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, healthcare, and hospitality, rely on migrant labor, and there are concerns about the impact of Brexit on these industries. Moreover, the political uncertainty surrounding Brexit has created a sense of instability, with many people feeling anxious about the future.
Twitter page, @T.Robinson New Era, is far bigger than Tommy Robinson. It's about the weaponisation of the judiciary against people who go against the government's narrative. Whether that be Steve Bannon, Alex Jones was fined £1 billion. £1 billion. This is a joke. The court cases against Donald Trump, Katie Hopkins, Geert Wilders, Marine Le Pen, anyone who has challenged the open border mass immigration policies of the New World Order is hit with weaponised judiciaries. My documentary totally...
This uncertainty has contributed to the broader sense of unease and frustration that has fueled the anti-immigration riots. For many people, the promise of Brexit has not yet materialized, and the ongoing political wrangling over the terms of the UK's departure from the EU has only deepened the sense of disillusionment. In this context, Robinson's message of taking back control resonates with those who feel that the country is on the wrong track and that the political establishment is failing to deliver on its promises. The rise of Tommy Robinson and the anti-immigration riots must also be understood in the context of the broader populist wave that has swept across Europe and the United States in recent years. Populism is a political ideology that pits the people against the elites, and it often thrives in times of economic hardship and social change. In the UK, populism has found fertile ground in the wake of the financial crisis, austerity measures, and the Brexit vote. Robinson is a quintessential populist figure, positioning himself as a champion of the ordinary people against a corrupt and out-of-touch elite. His rhetoric is often laced with conspiracy theories, suggesting that the political establishment is deliberately undermining the will of the people by allowing mass immigration and suppressing dissent. This kind of narrative is appealing to those who feel that they have been betrayed by the political system and are looking for someone to speak on their behalf. Populism also thrives on a sense of crisis and urgency, and Robinson has been adept at framing immigration as an existential threat to British society. By portraying immigrants as a danger to British culture, security, and economy, he is able to galvanize support and mobilize people around a common cause. This is a classic populist strategy where complex issues are simplified into a binary struggle between us and them. However, populism also has its dangers. By stoking fear and division, populist leaders can create a toxic political environment where dialogue and compromise become increasingly difficult. This is particularly concerning in a diverse society like the UK. where there is a need for cohesion and mutual understanding. The anti-immigration riots are a stark reminder of how quickly tensions can escalate when these divisions are allowed to fester. The UK government's response to the anti-immigration riots has been mixed, reflecting the complexity of the issue and the challenges of addressing the underlying causes of the unrest. On one hand, the government has taken steps to tighten immigration controls and address some of the concerns raised by those who feel that immigration is out of control. This has included measures such as the introduction of a points-based immigration system, which aims to prioritize skilled workers and reduce the number of low-skilled immigrants coming to the UK. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, do you think the truth about the riots will change public opinion? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.